I'm Nikki Murphy. I'm author of Home for Hurricanes, a poet, and a diversity, equity, and inclusion professional. But today I'm here to tell you 5 things you need to know to write powerful and evocative poetry. So let's get started. So number 1, emotion matters. You absolutely want to try to infuse emotion into your poetry using language and style. You want to be clear that you're not exactly stating the emotion, but you find ways to describe and paint the picture of the emotion. So make your poetry emote. One example that comes to mind is a poem that I have called For Roman that's very emotionally charged. And in it, I say a verse that talks about wants to express remorse, but without saying I'm remorseful, right? So what I say is, I wish I would have told you what the counselors told me, how things could be different if you get a degree, and how sometimes you have to leave your comfort zone and go away, even if that means leaving mom at home alone. So there I was capturing the essence of remorse without actually stating that I am remorseful. So these are some of the ways you want to infuse emotion into your poetry. It matters and it helps. Number 2, paint the picture that you want readers to see. You are the artist, and in poetry, we're using a lot of imagery and metaphors to paint the picture. So you want to make sure that's in line with what you're trying to state. So for example, if I'm talking about someone who is cold or callous, I might use metaphors like concrete and things that maybe are reflective of the tough environment they grew up in or the context of the poem. You might also use the opposite, right? Try to contrast if you want to draw out some of the beauty and the kind of juxtaposition of the beauty to this harsh and cold reality, right? So these are some of the ways that you can paint the picture. Number 3, say it like you mean it. Then say it again if you need to. So here, what I'm talking about is I want you to actually say what you mean. Compelling poetry usually is one where the poet has a strong perspective, or on the contrary, it could be a very loosely held perspective, but you have to be kind of emphatic in what you're saying. And then you can use techniques like repetition to say it again to really reinforce the main message of the poem. That's going to help it to be very powerful and evocative if you have a concrete perspective and you know where you're coming from and what you're trying to say. Number 4, you don't have to make 1 point when you can make 2. So what I'm talking about here is double meanings. You can use line breaks to enhance or create a double meaning for your poem. So you can almost think one thing based off where the line breaks, but then as you continue, there's a second meaning. You can also do this by structuring the poem such that there maybe are 2 separate columns and it could be read different ways. There are different ways to do this kind of double meaning, but that is also a technique that will help you create evocative poetry. And finally, number 5, don't be afraid to end emphatically. Now, I like to deliver a punch in the last line. This is something that can definitely leave the reader kind of thought-provoked. Think about what question you might want to pose at the end of the poem that maybe you've been building up in the metaphors and a text before, and then you want to leave people with a really powerful question or a really powerful one-liner. These are ways in which you can get your reader to think and really feel like, oh, that hit me, right? That power and that emotion coming through. So those were my 5 tips for creating powerful and evocative poetry. I hope you found them helpful, and I would love to hear from you. So make sure we stay connected. You can check out my website, nikki-murphy.com, and connect with me there, or you can connect with me over on Instagram at Mrs. Nikki Murphy. That's MRS Nikki Murphy. I hope to hear from you all soon.